Hey, what's going on, everyone? Okay. Give it a sec. I'm actually going to be having a guest on today. Um, Give it a sec here. Let me just write some stuff down too so I can remember what to cover. All right, guys. So I'm just waiting for a guest today. I saw some person jumped in. Let me know if you have any questions at all about any topic you're curious about. I might not have the answer, but happy to try to answer it while we wait for the guest here. Jacob, what is going on, man? Good to see you. I'm just waiting for a guest today. I'm going to be interviewing a person that their specialty is in the cancer field, so cancer prevention, which is a huge problem in the US today, but more of a psychosomatic approach to cancer. So give it one sec. All right, guys. I saw two other people jumped in here. Jacob, if you have any questions at all about any topics, just let me know. If I have the answer, happy to try to answer it. So try to do like an hour on this one today, guys, and then we'll go from there. Let's see. What's going on, everyone? Hope you're having a good weekend. I might go try to see the Smashing Machine this weekend. I'm also going to go mushroom foraging again on Sunday. It rained quite heavily like a week ago, and usually like 7 to 14 days after a pretty heavy rain, there's a tremendous amount of mushrooms. They usually flourish in kind of more like wooded, kind of foresty shaded areas. So there's a place maybe like a 40-minute drive from where I'm at currently, and I'm gonna go check it out tomorrow. And it's cool, you could double it up as a cardio session too. All right, Paul, what's going on, man? Request sent. A little bit something in my throat today. Hopefully I don't die on this live. What up, man? Long time no see.
Yes, it's been a while.
Yeah, good to see you, man. Well, just like all the other podcasts, I think you've been on like 3 times. We've actually only, or this is the 3rd time. We've only recorded it once because the 2nd time I forgot to press the damn record button. That's too bad,
Right,
man.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, it was like such an amateur move, dude. I was like pissed at myself for like maybe 2 hours at most, but I got over it quite quickly. But promise not to make the same mistakes. So now I just do them live, and then it's automatically recorded onto the
Okay,
social media platform, and then I just kind of have my VA, which kind of saves my life a lot of times,
awesome.
uploaded to the other platform. So, Paul, I'm going to have you take over, and I'm going to try to maybe ask some elaborate questions here and there to sound like semi-literate from time to time.
I'll try to
Uh,
do that too. I'll
yeah,
try to be literate.
but I want to introduce some stats first before we begin and kind of
Okay,
get your opinions on these kind of very humbling markers. And I've done this with many other people before in other lives, various experts, and just kind of introduce these numbers. So let me just run through them. And they're very interesting statistics that go under the radar of pretty much almost everyone, including a lot of people in the health field that have been in the health field for like 15, 20 plus years. So
interesting.
it's 2025. Let's look at the some of the statistics in America of what's going on with healthcare and just the general trend in health in America overall. So
Okay,
right now, yeah, it's not obviously too positive, but that's okay.
I don't imagine, yeah.
Yeah, so right now, 2025, we're actually almost at the close of 2025. 9 out of 10 Americans currently are metabolically sick, so 90%. I'm not even exaggerating that number. And for those people that aren't aware of what even metabolic health is, it's basically just a general measure of your overall health. So the variables that they're looked at is overall body fat percentage, resting blood glucose levels, blood pressure, triglycerides, and HDL. And basically, if you're in the red out of range and 2 of those markers are above, you're considered metabolically unhealthy. And government standards are really lax. I personally would say if you're in the red and 1 of those markers, you're already metabolically unhealthy because it's abysmally easy to be within range in any of those markers. And usually, kind of for the general listener, when a person isn't metabolically healthy in those markers, it's kind of equivalent to a person coming in not even knowing the ABCs of English. You know what I mean? That's kind of how lost they are in terms of their understanding of health or how to live life sustainably. So it's extremely easy to be metabolically healthy. That's what I'm saying. And right now, 9 out of 10 Americans are metabolically unhealthy. 90% are failing. Just that easy, like, do you know the ABCs of health and wellness? And 90% of people don't know the alphabet at all.
Mm-hmm.
8.5 out of 10 are either overweight or obese. Once again, very simple thing to manage. 900,000 Americans die from heart disease every single year. 900,000. And those are the ones that die. So basically, if you have a heart attack, there's a 50% chance of dying from a heart attack. So really, 1,800,000 Americans have a heart attack every year, and half of them die from it. So 900,000 deaths every single year.
Wow.
And kind of more up your alley here, you have about 650,000 people dying from cancer every year. And like half of Americans develop cancer within their lifetime, and half of them die from it. And for the audience, so basically, like, it's the weekend. If you go out with 3 of your friends and you're the 4th person, basically one person is going to die from like a heart attack, and one person is going to die from cancer. So it's a pretty serious issue. It's like 50% of your friends are going to die from one of those 2 things. Another thing we got going on is 125,000 people die from type 2 diabetes every year in America now, which is so abysmally easy to not even get in your lifetime. And you'll be surprised how many people think like type 2 diabetes is genetics. You know what I mean? You still have so many people you speak to are just like, I'm type 2 diabetic because I'm genetic and my mom and dad were type 2 diabetic. I'm like, no, like what really happened is just you adopted the belief system, the unhealthy belief system that led to various behaviors that lead to type 2 diabetes. That's really what's happening. 120,000 die from strokes every year. As of 2025, Americans are the most medically drugged out humans in all of human history now. With even when you consider the 28 human species that have come and gone, they're like the most medically drugged out on the most medical drugs ever.
Everyone's coping. Almost the entire society is coping with unresolved stuff.
Yeah, and they're the most medically drugged out humans in all of human history ever.
Well, yeah,
And
it's how you cope with symptoms, You're like the whole medical system's built on not actually resolving the cause of any of the symptoms. That the entire industry is built on coping, like survival, trying to, make things feel better than they actually do, but not actually solve the problem.
yeah, and I'll let you take over in a second. But yeah, exactly. They're trying to desperately do absolutely everything possible, but the one thing that actually works for chronic disease, and that's changing the person that's causing the disease, obviously, and there's many ways to go about doing that. It's going to vary from individual to individual, but the apex of that kind of more, I would say, moronic healthcare system, that it's like an epic failure, because how could it possibly be a success when you have, after trillions of dollars thrown into you as healthcare, you have 9 out of 10 Americans not even knowing the ABCs of health by being metabolically sick, 8.5 out of 10 being overweight or obese, and then now the apex of idiocy, you have Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy, like any of these kind of semi-glutides and stuff of this sort. And it just kind of, it's like a symbol of like, dude, Americans have reached an absolute low point. I can't see it possibly getting much lower than this. I mean, it's so terrible now that they've become just so desperate in trying to do anything possible. But the one thing that actually works, and that's kind of changing the person that's causing the disease. So here's a very difficult question for you, Paul. And I'm going to let you take over from here, okay? Having all of these statistics at hand, which you probably already knew about. I'm going to break this live into 2 parts. So first part is, how do we get, this is about like maybe 90% of the US population. How do we get the problem unaware crowd to realize that there is a very serious problem, and that being metabolically sick and being overweight and all these medical drugs and just looking beyond terrible is not normal in any way? I realize it's so common. People confuse it for being normal because you see it literally everywhere. But this is what normalized mental and physical pathology 101 looks like, which is like basically American culture now. So how do we get that 90% that are problem unaware still into at least being problem aware?
Well,
Go.
that's a difficult uh, challenge to solve. Um, I just kind of just speak randomly from certain things. The things that are coming to my mind are there's some things already happening that are quite profound. I would want to talk about God here
Okay.
because God's already playing a part in this, but I need to explain what I mean by that because there's so many concepts about God, and I have my own kind of unique approach to God. Um, but and then also I think we could teach how, like, one thing that would be helpful is if we just educate people, about what's normal, what's actually normal, because we're not educated on that. When we go to school, like all throughout in our entire younger years of school, we're not taught what's normal in the human body, right? Like it's normal to be able to run up a set of stairs. It's normal to be able to last sexually in bed. It's normal to have a healthy bowel movement. Like when you sit down on a toilet, you should have generally a nice, easy, not like relatively, what's the word, like acceptably smelling bowel movement. You should be sleeping well at night. This is all normal. You should feel inspired about the future. You should actually, that's normal. um you shouldn't be tired all the time. You certainly shouldn't be depressed. So I think we need to be educated on what's actually normal and what's actually possible and talk about that. And then maybe when people realize, shit, that's not what I'm experiencing, then there could be an interest in changing it, of course. That's one idea that comes to my mind. But what I wanted to say about God is that God's already taken care of humanity, but there's a certain thing that has to be understood here. And that's what I want to share right here, which I think would be helpful, is that God has designed the human body to let us know when something's happening in our life that's not good for us. And what happens is when we're living in a reality, when we're living in circumstances, when we're living in potentially free choices, when we're eating a certain way, when we're in certain relationship dynamics, and that's not good for us, meaning it's not in alignment with love and truth, it's going to start to cause symptoms in our body. And God designed it that way. So, like, we develop symptoms in our body because our body is drawing attention. It's designed to draw attention to let us know, like, hey, something's not good for us. But the problem, one of the hearts of the problem here is that we're taught something other than that what I just said. We're actually taught that something's wrong with our body. So most human beings are educated to think that we don't have a like miraculously designed body that is looking out for us, that is giving us feedback and letting us know, like giving us warning signs something's not good for us. We're actually taught something's wrong with our body and it has to get fixed, right? So that's why. So you're listing off of those statistics. Every single one of those people that are suffering in that way have a belief inside that they were programmed with, that something's wrong with them, and they have to go and try to get someone to fix it for them, like a professional that knows more about the human body than they do. But all of those professionals, all of them have been taught incorrectly as well, essentially, that something's wrong with their body. So then they go and try to fix it, and they can't actually fix it because the only way that you can fix the real problem, which is what's going on in our life, is if we find out, first of all, okay, what's going on in this person's life that's actually harming them, what's not good for them, and then we got to change it. But if you look at the medical system, right, there's no time spent at all in actually looking into the root cause of symptoms. There's no questions, there's no inquiry. Like, what's going on in your life? What kind of stresses are you experiencing? What kind of challenges? Are you happy? What's your financial situation? What, let alone your diet? Like, do you exercise? Do you get into nature? That's all normal to get into nature. It's normal to exercise, of course. It's normal to have a good diet. It's also normal to have healthy, loving happiness making relationships. That's normal. What's abnormal, and there's deep reasons for this, it's not just like people decide I'm going to actually have a bad life. This is all related to how we're programmed too, how we're raised, what we're exposed to when we're growing up. So I think like one of the most important things that people need to learn is that there's nothing wrong with their body, and it's actually telling them that something's not good for them. And that's when spirituality comes in. The way I define it, at least, like my definition is when you have a symptom, not just a symptom, but when you run into challenges in your life that don't feel good, like a conflict with your partner, stress in the family, stress about money, worries about the future, like, and of course, if you run into symptoms in the body, headaches, not sleeping well, a tumor, of course, like heart problems, whatever it is, spirituality, real spirituality, I think, is to reflect and ask why why you've attracted that. Like, why have I attracted this? Like, why am I in this challenge? Why? And then we start this self-inquiry, not a guilt trip, but an investigation to see like, okay, how am I out of alignment with love and truth, and why? Because if we're in alignment with love and truth, there's no possible way to develop symptoms. It's like the truth is we're supposed to drink like water to be hydrated. That's how God designed it too. Like, what's really beautiful if you start to understand God, at least I find it this way, the way that I'm explaining God, my perception of it, I just think it's so beautiful. It's so loving. It's so spiritually just. Like, the world is just amazing. God designed water to work in the human body, and it just works perfectly. Literally, like, it won't cause problems. It's not going to harm you, right? But humans, because of greed, oftentimes have designed all kinds of other things to drink that will definitely harm you, like alcohol, of course. Like pop and caffeine drinks, like Red Bull and shit like that. It's like super toxic, right? But so God allows that to happen because God's not going to take free will away, or else we wouldn't be loved, right? We have to be. If God really is love, that means God's going to let us do whatever we want to do. So we can be greedy. We can try to take advantage of people, sell liquids that make money but destroy the person if they drink it, and even trick them and say, this is good for you. But here's the thing, God's designed the body to protect you. So if you drink something like pop or alcohol, you're going to develop symptoms of some kind, like right away. It won't take that long. And that's God protecting us without taking away our free will, without controlling us. So there's nothing wrong with our body. Like, absolutely nothing wrong. It's actually saying, hey, what you just drank, careful. That's not designed with love. That's not in alignment with love and truth. It's not. That's what it means. So I think that's one of the most important things. That would be my answer.
Yeah, you covered.
Understand the human body for real, and then be spiritual. So if I drink some liquid that's not in alignment with love and truth, I'll find out because my body will let me know. And then I just need to reflect and go, okay, why did I attract this? Well, and then you have all sorts of potential reasons. Like in the past, I used to drink alcohol, and I started to realize it's really damaging me. And then when I started to question my whole reality and my decisions, I then started to run into certain reality, like challenges about stopping. Like, everyone else is drinking it. Like, all my friends were drinking it. So in order to stop drinking, I had to actually become more independent. I had to just love myself and be willing to lose possibly some love from certain friends, which I did. Certain friends are like, what are you doing? They were criticized it, judged me, like, what are you doing? You're stopping drinking. Like, I don't want to stop drinking. And I'm like, well, I do. And so then it became uncomfortable. So that's the other thing I would just say is that one of the challenges with changing is oftentimes we have to do it potentially alone, which can be scary, which can be difficult. But that's spiritual strength that you grow when you act spiritually. So
Yeah,
how's that? That's my answer.
no, it's good. Whenever I know you're not kind of like tied to the Czech Institute, but whenever I have people that I met through that institute as guests on here, I like never know which way this podcast is going to go. So it's like a pop quiz on like a million topics. It's like, okay, go. But you brought up But you brought up some like super important points. I kind of want to dive into a little bit more detail on the importance of that. And that's first, kind of like you mentioned, when people have like symptoms, it's their body's way of telling them that something is kind of like wrong, and there should be some more investigating to do around that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the issue with healthcare, like you kind of alluded to or just mentioned directly, is that when people have a symptom like depression, or they're just too overweight and now they want to use Ozempic or something of that sort, instead of learning about, like what are the belief structures that are going on that are leading to certain behaviors that are leading to this symptom, people just kind of drown out that pain teacher, that symptom, with just medical drugs, you know? And I think to one extent, this is probably more over the problem unaware crowd. Like 90% of people, they have like some issue. They go to their doctor talks to them for about like 5 minutes or so. I think the national average in the US is like 7.5 minutes or something of that sort.
Yeah, something
And
like that. Yeah.
yeah, for the listeners, like a good assessment is like from start to finish with a relatively healthy person, it's like 3 to 4 hours when you first meet them. You know what I mean? And then there's usually a lot of follow up with that client, because a lot of times it's not so much an information issue, but they need, moreover, like you mentioned, a new belief system in their circle to saturate whatever mind virus they have going on. And hopefully that new belief system from like the healthcare provider is actually healthy themselves, which is basically almost impossible to find as well. Like you mentioned, like I went to like a medical convention in Vegas like a few months ago, and dude, I thought it was like an obesity convention. There's even 3 obese doctors selling a laser that can melt fat off of your midsection on a booth. And I'm like,
Wow.
dude, how comical
Mm.
can this be? Like, first of all, why aren't they using it? You know what I mean? Second of all, it's like, how stupid could this be? And that's unfortunately the pattern that a lot of Americans run into. They have like some symptom, and then they kind of drown it out with medical drugs. So like, if they have a rock stuck inside their shoe, like a 2-year-old child will understand, like, hey, if I just take the rock out, the pain will go away. But so quote unquote educated adult will just keep the rock there and take painkillers instead. Like, how moronic does that sound when you phrase it in that way? But
Mhm.
yet people don't question that at all. They just kind of like, well, the doctor knows best. He went to school for like 12 years. And obviously this is how it is. And I think also just a lot of medical doctors educate their clients believing that it's just their genetics and they can't do anything about it. So I would challenge the listeners here, go to pubmed.gov and see the percentage of people that actually have genuinely high blood pressure because of their genetics, or something going on with their cholesterol, or what's been debunked a long time ago. That's the chemical imbalance theory of depression. Like there's some kind of chemical imbalance in your mind that's causing depression. You guys, it's like 1 in 5, 6, 700 people that actually could genuinely fall into this category, especially with blood pressure. It's even probably higher. It's so moronic to think this way. And I would just kind of question it further. Go to pubmed.gov, bring these studies to your doctor, tell them to explain it to you, and then progress from there.
I
Uh,
can share a story of what actually causes high blood pressure.
yeah, I have too much attention, and among other things. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, several years ago, I think it was like 2019, life had been going great for me for a while. And I just, for fun, like, I don't even have a doctor. I haven't had a doctor in 30 years. I never get any tests, nothing. I don't even do a checkup, nothing for like 30 years. That's it. But I would go in and mail stuff at the local post office near I lived, and there was this blood pressure chair thing where you can just for free just stick your arm in there and check. So sometimes, just out of curiosity, I would be like, I want to see what this thing says about my body. And I always had perfect blood pressure. It was like, well, whatever that is, it's supposed to be like 120 over 80. So that's what it was generally. I think it might have been a little lower or something. I don't know. It was good numbers. And then life started to change and it became more stressful for me. And I started to be pushed to the max with responsibilities. So, without getting into all the details, I was just overworking. I felt pressure and I felt like I had to do a lot. And I even actually started to drink coffee. So I started drinking a tiny, like a small coffee every morning before I started work because I was so tired. And I was just pushing, 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 felt all this pressure. And then I found myself in that little post office. There's like a pharmaceutical place connected to it. That's why there's this chair with the blood pressure. So I thought, I'm going to check my stats here again, and my blood pressure was high for the first time I'd ever witnessed that in my life. Like I played around with this chair thing for probably like, I don't know, for sure 5 years, maybe 10 years. It was always just good. But when I went through this massive stress and I was under all this pressure, it was like 140 over 90 or something. I think that's what it was, which is high blood pressure. Then I realized, okay, well, as soon as I just reflected on my life, I'm like, it was obvious to me because of the changes that I've been experiencing. That's what's caused my high blood pressure. So not only that, so of course I didn't take any drugs or anything like that. I all I did was realize I've got to solve this problem. So I started digging into, like why am I overworking as much as I am? How can I solve this? How can I reduce the load? How can I get myself out of this feeling of pressure all the time? And I started reducing caffeine, and gradually over time, I corrected it and I got back into balance. And then when I checked my blood pressure, sure enough, it's just 120 over 80. So now that's one of the things I always look into. If someone says they have high blood pressure, I ask, how much pressure do you feel in life? It's almost across the board. I'm like, I feel so much pressure. Yeah, that's why I have high blood pressure.
Yeah. I'm still shocked about how many people still say like it's my genetics, you know? I get that so
Because
often. I'm like, dude, how abysmally lost can you be right now in 2025? How can you be this moronic
yeah,
still, you know?
well, I think that like I don't know, there's probably a lot of reasons, factors that cause this, but generally there's this, I don't know, let's call it a force in this world that wants people to be irresponsible. Like, do not take responsibility for yourself. And so, because if a person can be programmed and taught even at a young age, and this is what's happening today, children are being taught at a young age. If you're taught not to be responsible, right? So if you're taught like something's wrong with your body instead of teaching you how it actually works, if you're not taught what spirituality is, and if you're taught everything backwards, so you look outside yourself to try to solve problems all the time, then it's like the more irresponsible you can be trained and indoctrinated to be, the more profitable you are. The more you make people powerful at at your expense, of course, and also you keep people in positions of power that are greedy and selfish, and like basically, so that's what I think is actually happening. You
Yeah, and I
know,
find unfortunately it's even with the field of psychology, which was a huge field of passion for me a long time ago. I got my degree in psychology from the Cog Sci department at UCI. It's even been industrialized, you know? So even when people look for honest answers in the field of academic psychology, you'll see it's all about like, how can we get you to fit into industrial society better? You know, like, oh, let's work on your anxiety so you can work longer hours and you can have more money and you can have more. Let's make sure, let's work on your depression so you're not depressed enough so you can work more and make more money and have more partners and more people will like you. It's just kind of become this more like very industrial society thing. And then obviously, uh, medical healthcare industry is like psychology on steroids. You know, it's like the worst. Like, hey, you know, like you mentioned, oh, you know, you have high blood pressure. Okay, let's for sure not get you to stop working those 70-hour weeks. Just here's some blood pressure medication. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
so moronic. I don't
keep
know
keep the
how.
machine keep the machine going, right?
Yeah, I don't know how people are this abysmally lost in like, is it like a low IQ? Is it an impulse issue? I think for most people it's a combination of having
I,
actually like a low IQ and being very impulsive.
I no, I don't think. Well, I mean, sure, that probably that's possible. I think people are mostly intelligent actually, but their intelligence is blocked. So if you look up like what's the guy's name? Um, there's a guy that wrote a lot of books and did tremendous research on the school system, and he just explains without a doubt. It's very obvious. He has all the history. It's like this guy really dug into this thoroughly. The school system was designed to make you stop being intelligent. Like the entire school system, there's two school systems. There's one built on, like, it's like the public, the typical public system that all parents are taught, okay, this is where you send your little human souls off, this is where you put them. And then there's like a non-public that most people don't know about, where kids of highly wealthy families and who understand what the school system actually does to people, those kids go there. And that school teaches you to use your intelligence. But the public school system is actually designed to shut your intelligence down, so you like stop thinking. So, for example, like I don't know why I'm lucky. I see myself as lucky because my mom dropped out of school when she was in grade 8. So my mom has a grade 8 education, so she's not educated, and because of that, I've noticed my mom she has access to her innate intelligence, and so she just thinks a lot, and I mean in a productive way, and she taught me to do that. So I was just speaking with someone yesterday, and I was talking about one of the biggest challenges that cause a lot of disease in humanity, and because of the stress and how that ends up damaging our body over time. But one of the biggest challenges is that people oftentimes feel trapped in life financially. So
Mhm.
they might be working in a job that they don't really want to work there anymore for any number of potential reasons. There's lots of possibilities. Um, or people choose to work in a job even though they don't want to do that job. So they already know they don't want to do it, but they choose to do it anyways. And here's the biggest one that causes like massive stress: when people lose their job and then they feel like they're, pardon my language, but they're just fucked. Like, now what? What am I gonna do? They look for jobs. They look and look and look. They cannot find a job, and can fall into despair. They can feel hopeless. It's so stressful, understandably. But here's something I want to share with you. If I would never ever get a job, I would never ever get a job. Now, I don't want to judge anyone that has a job or wants to have a job, because there are some jobs that I would do. There's some circumstances where I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll work, because in some cases I might really want to learn like certain things that I would learn if I took that job, because I might have a passion or like some kind of real value in what I would acquire from that job. Or I would maybe work for a company to help that company become successful, because I want that company to do well in this world because of like what they do for humanity and what they do for people. Maybe I would do that. But off the top of my head, those are two exceptions. Other than that, I would never ever get a job. And if I'm without a job, like right now, if I lost my businesses, and right now I'm working on three. I have a board game that I've invented, and I have a another invention. It's a soap holder that keeps your, so like it's really cool. I'm not going to explain it, but it's very very, I love it. It's good. I've already made it. And then I have Root Cause Institute, where I'm helping people understand how to heal and prevent disease and become whole. So I have three big things, and it's a task to try to manage it. But here's what I want to say: if I lost them all, I just, for whatever reason, I would actually not get a job, and within days I could have a new plan and start becoming successful. And it's not because I'm some kind of a special person. It's because my mom, honestly, it's because my mom didn't go to school, and she taught me to how to think, and how to always have access to all the different possibilities of existence. Like, I'm very much connected to my soul, and I'm not living through my head. What school does is it teaches you to live through your head. So our head is very limited. It's like, okay, the only way I can survive is if I get a job. It's like, that's not the only way you can survive. That limits you big time, because it's like, well, what jobs are available? See, immediately you're in a dependent scenario. See what I'm saying? You're immediately dependent. And then it's like, well, it depends on the economy. And then, like, what are people going to pay? And it's all this outside stuff. But like if I lost the job, I would turn inwards to my soul and I would use my thinking capacity because it hasn't been shut down. And I've worked on waking it up too. So what I'm saying is I don't think people are unintelligent. I think they've been shut down. And what's actually possible is that I think today is one of the best times to exist as a human being. There is so much potential, so many possibilities. Like we can build businesses and there's so many businesses needed. Like we need to redo the whole society. Like I mean, we got to like make food better, we got to raise animals better, we got to make clothing better, we got to like do build houses better. Like there's so many things that are huge problems and we need people to start doing it better. And like there's just so many possibilities, there's so many options. But if our intelligence is shut down, then we can become so trapped in life and think like there's only one way to live, and we just won't access our creative faculties. We won't access our imagination. We won't access the possibilities of creation, and they're enormous, man. Like they're just enormous. It's such a great time to live. It's so easy to build a business today. But people, honest to God, because of our programming, because of how society raises us, like to be slaves, if a person loses their job, if you don't have the proper education about how to be a human soul, you could, you could commit suicide. It's that serious. Like the amount of stress people can experience because they've lost connection to the human soul and our actual potential. Like God's actually supporting us big time through our soul, though, not through our head. So if you live life through your indoctrination, you're gonna be running into some serious problems.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm curious, have you ever been confused by the labels in the grocery store? In Yevgeny's book, he demystifies the difference between caged, cage-free, free-range, and pasture-raised meats. He also covers how to avoid GMOs, source high-quality water, fish, supplements, and other related topics. It's a beautifully illustrated, non-technical read that comes with a comprehensive video series and other extended learning materials. Jump on Amazon and check out the book titled Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide by Eugene Trufkin. Now let's dive back into the podcast.
Yeah, I guess the indoctrination kind of like it comes with scripts, and identities. And then anytime you identify with any one thing, it obviously limits your focus to kind of just seeing the world from that one kind of myopic lens,
Yeah.
and stuff of that sort. But you kind of mentioned the job thing, and I'm like, man, I remember at the end of UCI, it was like 2009 during the mortgage collapse. And I was coaching people part-time, like 10 hours a week, nothing crazy. But I already saw like what, corporate, like 10, 20, 30 years of corporate work would do to you. And I was so afraid to go into the corporate market, which was my intention because I went through that education system that you just described, it was either that or like the military, basically.
I ended up in the military for a small time too.
Oh yeah, you got to tell me that I don't see you as a military person, but you got to. That's why you said small time. I understand it. But anyways, I kind of sensed your fear because I just felt like I couldn't do that. You know what I mean? And I didn't do it. I just kind of stuck with coaching, and a lot of my friends were like, "Oh man, no one's gonna get coaching. It's 2009. No one even has a job. Whatever. Blah blah blah." But I'm like, man, I can't see myself doing that. But it's funny that you mentioned what jobs you have, and instantly what popped up in my mind was like, well, I would go work for like the colonial marines from Aliens. If that job was opening, I'm like, that would be so cool. I don't know why that popped up randomly in my mind to add some comedy to this kind of humbling topic here. But yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I didn't look too much into it as much as you have, but I just think the education system was built more over on getting people into kind of like factory type work, getting
Yep.
more kind of qualified factory workers instead of kind of entrepreneurs. And I feel people like, what would you suggest to people? Because I feel like right now, with like 9 out of 10 people being metabolically sick and so overweight, they're just like so inflamed and so like on survival mode. Their attention is so myopic, how do you get them out of this kind of like more like even that population that we spoke about in terms of problem unaware? how do you even get them out of this myopic state to even suggest, like, hey, this is not normal to be living this way, to look like you look, and stuff of this sort, to be on all these medical drugs and all that. Like, how do you even get them out of? What's your take on?
You know what? Okay, the first thing I want to say, because this is the thing that I've just observed more than anything else by far, is that, and I want to theorize a little bit here too. So first my observation, and then I want to theorize it, is I kind of think that God is maybe the only one that can do that. I don't know if we can actually do it. And what I mean by that is that most of the time, and applies to myself too, when I've woken up to things and I realize, whoa, something's got to change here, it's because of pain. It's because of symptoms. It's because, like, I stepped out of alignment with love and truth enough that it led to significant enough symptoms and pain. And that's like going back to what I was saying in the beginning of this talk. That's how that's how God's designed the body to protect us and look after us. So usually what happens is we don't really wake up until there's enough pain. And that's how God wakes us up. But again, you can have pain and still not actually want to change. And that's how God honors free will. But God never abandons us. Like, God will not stop giving you pain through the human body design unless you get into alignment with love and truth. So, like, if I just kept drinking alcohol, God's not going to change the design of the human body to stop protecting me by giving me warning signs, right? Like, it's not going to change. The only way that my body's going to stop giving me that message is if I switch to, like, water and heal my deeper reasons for why I'm addicted to the alcohol to begin with, which can be hard to change. But God's working with us. So that's what I mean by, I think God might be the only person that actually can wake someone up. And the other reason why I say that is because, like, I've tried so many times to help people that I care about, family members, friends, go to them and say, look, there's something important that I think you should change or you should know about. And honest to God, I've never succeeded. Never. So how I live now is, what I do is I have let go of control in that area, and I do my best to share openly, non-attached to, like, the public. Like, I'm not even trying to wake a particular person up. I just feel like if there's anyone out there in this world that has already woken up and they're looking for answers to how to change, and they're wanting to change because they've already been woken up, possibly just because of the way the body is designed by God, then then maybe hopefully I'll have something good to share with them that'll actually help them. So I don't really try to wake people up. I just actually let God send me who is already awake because of how God has helped them wake up. Does that make sense?
No, I actually experienced kind of honestly the same exact thing. I just, unfortunately, I just feel, you said, now is the best time to be alive. In certain ways it is. But in terms of healing, I feel it's one of the toughest times because, again, the healthcare system is designed to keep the people asleep.
That's true.
Again,
from that perspective, yeah, I can relate to you there. Yeah.
Because
in another way, it's the hardest time. Yeah.
Yeah, because I luckily, you probably just coincidentally ran into people that showed you that there is a different belief system that you could adapt, like your mom. And I ran into, like, my grandmother that raised me initially on the off-grid farm. She never plugged into society, never went to school, never had a job or anything. So I at least had that reference point. But still, even when transitioning into this society, I kind of lost my ways at times. But at least I had that reference point as a foundation. I'm like, there's something like super off with this culture, that may lead to a high GDP and a good military industrial complex. But, like, outside of that, it's at the detriment of basically making their population normalize obesity, misery, medical drug dependence, and disease. And I feel like, hands down, 95% of people, when they have an issue, they're just going to go to their doctor or psychologist. And they're just basically going to be told, like, hey, how could we change you so you can stay plugged into the industrial system better, industrial society better. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's not like, even psychology, unfortunately, it has like nothing to do. It started with discovering who you were. And that's it. That was its only purpose. And I feel it's like amazing in and of itself, and that's where it should have stayed. But now it's become a business. It's like,
Right.
let's not even focus on that. Let's just focus on your conditioned self. And let's focus on what we can kind of change about your conditioned self to get you to fit into the industrial complex even better.
Hmm.
That's it. And psychiatry is obviously a Looney Tunes clown industry, in my opinion.
Well, and something interesting just happened yesterday. I had a session with a client, and or maybe it was a few days ago, and I've got so much going on. I don't even know what day it is. But in the session, my client shared something with me that was very personal, and um, they don't share that with anybody because of the amount of judgment and shame that they've received related to that personal thing. And they felt safe to actually share it with me. And because they were safe to share it with me, we could then dig into it and talk about it more and really start to unravel it and begin to understand it more and then start to make shifts and changes. But here's the thing. What they told me is that they have been working with a therapist, which typically therapists are trained by the very system that causes a lot of the damage that's inflicted on us to begin with. You know, like you keep saying, like they take us. How can we get you back into the machine? How can we get you back into that reality that caused the problem to begin with, right? So therapists, like a lot of them. Now, I don't want to say all. Like, of course, there's good therapists and not good therapists, right? Like, this isn't like a dogmatic statement about therapists. I'm just saying this one therapist that I've worked with my client, my client started to share with them this personal thing, and they told them to stop because that's stressing them out. And my client was shut down. They could not share the very deeper thing that was causing them so much pain and suffering with a professional that's supposed to be able to connect to the pain and the suffering about their clients. So not only that, but it gets worse. My client shared with me that they had been suffering with this personal matter for years, and they finally worked up the courage to go to the hospital because they just didn't know how to solve this problem, and they went to the hospital, but they would have to share this personal thing, right? So they could start to work on what it was. And when they got together with the doctor screamed at them and told them to leave. They said, "Don't come into the hospital for something like this." So they were shut down and shamed by the therapist, and they were shut down and shamed by the doctor. So neither of them could even help. So what I'm saying is, a lot of the system and a lot of the solutions that are part of the system, the training and everything that goes into it, they don't even necessarily know how to solve the problem. Like, I've had clients, for example, that have been in therapy for 15 years. If you're seeing someone like a professional to get help and you're seeing them for 15 years, that means they're not helping you.
Mhm.
That's what that means. And I've had clients that have been in therapy for 20 years. That means you're not being helped. If you work with a professional to get a solution, it should come far faster than that. Now I don't want to put expectation. That doesn't mean anyone you ever work with should have the solution and can always solve the problem for you. Everyone's doing the best they can, but you just need to understand that therapy, like, I think a lot of therapy is, like you're saying, it's become this profit thing or something where it's just like, hey, as long as we've got clients paying for services, let's just keep working with them. But like over time, maybe the quality, like the real solutions, has been degrading. Quantity over quality or something. Like, something's not right when stuff like this is happening.
Yeah, I sense you're a bit more positive than me, Paul. That's why I invite you on these podcasts to kind of balance out the energy. So when yeah, of course, what you said about psychologists, there are no absolutes. There's some amazing ones for sure, but just from personal experience, and I've been in this field for 20 years, avid reader, huge psychology buff, like I would honestly say with absolute confidence that like 99.8% of psychologists I run into are some of the most disintegrated people I've ever met in my life. And of course, then you have a situation where the blind are leading the blind,
Right. Thank you. You
And
summed that up really
yeah,
well with that
and I would
statement. Yeah.
argue, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't even have this, like a very supportive um, and like fairly intelligent, like mom and dad are far better for your mental health than a psychologist. I think a psychologist is just for people that don't have that in their circle, unfortunately. A lot of people do fall into that category, unfortunately. And that's their best bet on having some kind of support in their inner circle, during a tough time in their life and stuff of this sort. But it's important to like be like, hey, you for people to realize like we see the health industry from a different lens, from kind of like backstage. And backstage, it's a cesspool, it's like a circle, circus. Again, I told you I went to this medical convention. I actually went to a psychology convention like at the beginning of the year too. Again, it looks like a freaking obesity convention, dude. I'm like, what the fuck is going on with these people? Like they can't even like absolutely master the ABCs of living well and sustainably. Like how in the hell is this person going to help you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why you see this like in therapy for like 10, 15, 20 years. Dude, this guy has been in therapy. This psychologist has been in therapy his whole life and still sick. What do you expect,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We gotta not be led by the blind. And there's spiritual teachings that need to be taken serious. Like by their fruits you shall know them. It's like if you just live by that spiritual teaching, like actually apply it, your life would get better. You know?
Yeah, I
Like
feel.
learn from people that if you want to make money, learn from people that make money. If you want to like get healthy, learn from people that are healthy. If you want to have a healthy relationship, learn from people that have a healthy relationship. There's a lot of spiritual leaders on like social media, like just dime a dozen, so many that don't have healthy relationships, but they teach about love or they teach about spirituality. Like, I mean, and real spirituality, as I define it, is like the ability to grow or evolve in relationships with others. But there's so much confusion about it. Like, I mean, over the years, I've just encountered so much like spirituality is often thought that like it's associated with like being a monk. Like if you're a monk, a Buddhist, then you're spiritual. But you can be a monk and not practice any spirituality at all, zero, like for real. Because if you work with the definition I'm explaining, which is to reflect on why you attract challenges, particularly in relationships, because then you can start to see your own shadow and you can start to heal the parts of yourself that are out of alignment with love. But if you just don't have a relationship, for example, if you just like forsake family and forsake like relationships altogether and just like become a monk and be a single person your whole life, then you can just avoid spirituality potentially altogether. So spirituality I think is like really really lost and not understood, and there's so many false like representations of spirituality. But by their fruits you shall know them. What are the fruits of this person? So if you have someone that like um yeah, I won't attack monks anymore because monks have good intentions. There's some good people there. I was gonna give some more examples, but yeah, by their fruits you shall know them. So what are the
Yeah.
fruits of this person, right? What are they doing? What are the actual fruits of this person? So that's what you can learn from them. You can learn how to produce those fruits yourself if they're willing to share and teach.
Yeah, I feel unfortunately spirituality too has become that industrialized healthcare, Same exact thing for the most part. In pretty much the
Industrialized.
majority. Yeah, in the majority of circles,
What
It's
what do
been
you mean? Can you give me an example of that? I'm not sure I quite understand you, but I think I do, but
basically it's a business, you know?
oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Sex is sold as spirituality today.
Yeah, like what is it, Tantra? It's like one
Yeah,
out of the
that
50,000 meditations, but they make it like its whole own thing because it's easy to market, you know?
right, and that means you're probably being a spiritual person if you're really sexually open and sexually confident. But doesn't mean you're being a spiritual person, because spirituality is when you run into challenges in a relationship, you reflect and try to see your own shadow and how you're out of alignment with love and truth. there's lots of there's a lot of problems potentially. Now of course there's some good teachings related to tantra, like we shouldn't be feel shame to be sexual. Sex is healthy, of course, but you can go to the opposite extreme where sex is supposedly love. And like if you have lots of sex, that must mean you're experiencing lots of love. But that's not necessarily true at all. And people get really damaged in that. I've come across it many times, like seriously. There's a lot of damage that can be done related to sex and trying to cross it over with, like, merge it with spirituality. In
Yeah.
fact, one of the biggest acts of spirituality is to gain mastery, if you could ever friggin' reach that point, over sex. So that, for example, you can be a person that can have sex with just one person, and that's it, for many years in a true commitment. That's like an act of spirituality. And if you can't face the things that rise up from that in those that kind of commitment, if you can't face your inner voids and your inner addictions and your, a lot of people use sex to escape like real challenges in relationships, like the number of people having affairs and stuff like this. So you can end up in this tantra concept where like sex is spirituality. It's potentially dangerous stuff. It can be liberating for some, especially if they've been shamed their whole life about sex. But the opposite side of the coin is there, and that's happening a lot, I think.
Yeah, I also found it like very interesting that a lot of spiritual enlightenment is just due a lot of times with just restricting your normal biological urges, you know?
Yes,
Like,
like if you can sit and feel pain for many hours without moving, that means you're spiritual.
yeah, or like, like for example, you mentioned shame around having the normal biological urge to have sex to reproduce, which is kind of like a central nervous system function. It's kind of like, oh, withholding your like not like priests not having sex at all. It's basically, oh, like why did you choose this one instead of just like not having a bowel movement, calling that spiritual, restricting that
That's a
natural
good
biological urge.
point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's see how
Yeah.
long you can hold your bowel movement. And the longer you can hold it, that means the more enlightened you are and more disattached you are from your mind, body, or whatever, however you want to frame it. But I found
Mm.
it always like very interesting. It's kind of like with human behavior. I find this could be like a very mechanical kind of approach to it, but I find like you can pretty much tie like any human behavior back to the basic need to survive in the external world. Anything. Like watch, like why do you go to college? Oh, I go to college so I could have like more whatever prestige in society, a higher paying job, I could live in a better area, I can be introduced with more kind of like higher income and better quality people maybe. Oh, like why is that all that important? Oh, so I could survive better. That's it. Or like even enlightenment circles, like why do you want to be enlightened? Oh, so I can have less friction in the external world and I can kind of like understand things and then people will look up to me and then ask me advice on things and then I'll be sought after. Like, why is that important? Oh, just so you can survive better. You know, it's kind of like very interesting. It always kind of like ties back no matter what kind of belief system or what kind of philosophy the person follows. It always ties back to survival in one way or another. And
Mm.
survival for the central nervous system is kind of like that's the ultimate like puppet master.
Mm. Mm. That's interesting. One of the questions I teach about and I ask like clients is, why do you exist? And it can go very deep. Like you can learn a lot about yourself and your upbringing and like your ego and where you're truly invested in this life and how and why, just from answering that question. Why do you exist? Um when I answered that question to myself, for example, I said to solve problems. That was the first, like, if you think about it, you can come up with some kind of ready-made answer, but that's not helpful. It's more like if you just what answer comes quickly and naturally, then you'll get something more from your subconscious, like from your ego. And that was what I said, to solve problems. And then you go back in my childhood, and like that's why I existed. That's why I was important as a child, is to solve problems. So now today I can become unhappy, overworked, out of balance because I'm so busy solving problems.
Mhm.
I can totally lose my whole self in that identity, that existential like reason to exist. And yeah, in my childhood, I could not survive actually unless I solved problems. So now as an adult, of course, I can survive without solving problems, but that's not what my ego says. As a child, it was like I would not survive because I'd be abused emotionally if I wasn't solving problems. So it's really deep. I'm glad you bring that up. It's like I didn't expect us to talk this deep in
That's
this.
why I told you I never know what direction is going to go when I invite people like you on this podcast. It's like
Yeah.
a pop quiz on like everything in life, you know? I'm like, oh
Uh-huh.
shit, I might just be quiet this whole entire live because I don't know like what the hell they're talking about. That happened a few times, you know?
Well, yeah, I encourage, if anyone's watching and you hear me, see what comes. If you answer that question, just be honest with yourself, see what comes up. It can help you come to understand yourself, and that's super important, to understand like who you really are and why, like how much of your life is built on your soul, which was designed by God, and versus how much of your life is built on programming, belief systems, indoctrination, which that's designed by man and that's implanted in the brain. But like our real existential value and our real existential power, like that comes from our soul.
Yeah. It's always interesting, you know, like observing the contents of the mind, and you notice just how external world oriented it is. And it's always
Yeah.
problem solving all the time, you know what I mean? And the thing that's like, so I always found so interesting about the mind is it's like it's always changing its mind. It's so fickle and unreliable, you know? Like today, you like this person. Like 5 weeks later, you don't like them anymore. Like 5 weeks after that, you're like indifferent. And you're like, whatever, you know?
I,
And
I
it's
re-
always, yeah, it's always changing its mind. So it's like you can't rely upon it. Then when you
right.
phrase it that way to people, then they're like, oh, like what do I fall back on, you know?
Yeah. You fall back on the soul and learn like I think one quality that we should be taught as children is to always know that life is a mystery, and to let it be that way, like embrace the mystery of life. Don't get too attached and too engulfed or too enmeshed or too lost in any one thing, because then like the more you get lost in any one thing, the more you're disconnecting from the mystery and all the possibilities, and it can really damage a human being to do that, to lose ourselves in something, you know.
Yeah.
But we're not taught these things, like spiritual teachings, man, doesn't happen in school, at least. So
Yeah. Are you there?
yeah. Did
Okay.
I just leave?
No, no, you're there. Okay, I kind of froze
No.
for a second. Okay, so we'll close. Yeah, Paul, just have like a few more minutes. I got to take off to another call in like 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, regarding to close out to support your comment even more, uh, yeah, it is very easy to kind of merge and get stuck with identities. So I guess like the big question is like, if everything you know about you comes from your thoughts, you know, or your memories or whatever. Um, and you're observing those thoughts, you know, you can't possibly be them. You know what I mean? And because just like the retina of the eye cannot see itself, if you're like close your eyes, you could observe the thoughts that comprise like your conditioned self, you know, the actor like you had to become to survive in this external world in one way or another. And then it can kind of help you disattach from a lot of these identities, which could be causing various pathologies, you know, in your body, in your biology, such as the metabolic health issues, the weight issues, depression, anxiety, et cetera, and stuff of that sort. So Um, thanks for being on the show. Are there any other topics you want to touch on? We've got about like 10 more minutes. Happy to.
Um, I don't know. I the most important thing I always like to talk about is what spirituality is, and we covered that to some degree. So I don't know. There isn't anything I feel super inspired about. Um, hmm. I don't know. Maybe I could say one more thing since we like to try to add more value to the stuff we already talked about, which is that we talked about thinking,
Mhm.
and intelligence, and I think it's important to really take that seriously and practice thinking for ourselves on as a life practice, always thinking about possibilities, always thinking outside the box, always exploring things to strengthen that muscle, the ability to think, and always be careful that we're not just thinking what we're supposed to be thinking based on expectations in society or our training, our upbringing, like programs, because um that's one of the dangers I think that's happening today, especially on social media with things like artificial intelligence and all this stuff like chat gpt. um, there's so much influence, there's so much desire by lots of sources to get people to think a certain way. If you can be made to think a certain way, you can be profited from, you can have your life force extracted from you. There's so many hooks on in the world, hooks to hook our mind, hook our attention, to get us to start putting our thoughts into a certain thing. So I guess I just want to say, one of the primary ways to remain healthy and to heal, like all those diseases you listed in the beginning that humanity is so faced with, is to really take responsibility for our thinking and think for ourselves, like really think for ourselves. And you'd be surprised if you just spend time alone and go in nature, or go for walks even in the morning, and just start asking yourself, why do I have these symptoms? Like, what do I need to change in my life? This, if you connect to your thinking and you take responsibility, you start getting all your power back. You can eliminate the symptoms. But if you don't use your power to think, and like I said, John Taylor Gatto, that's the guy that wrote these books about the school system. School has designed us to not think. Like many people think they think, but they're not actually thinking. I see it all the time. There's no thinking happening. It's just like automatic responses. It's like program behavior, and that'll get you into real trouble. It can lead to disease for real because you're not thinking for yourself. So maybe we can all end with that.
Yeah. And for the problem unaware crowd, I kind of listed a lot of the markers you would look for to objectively qualify you as being very unhealthy. You can kind of start with those. That way you kind of at least have some kind of objective reading like, hey, I am very unhealthy, and then kind of start doing a lot of the self-inquiry that Paul was talking about. And it's not going to be an easy journey. Don't think of quick fixes. If all these bogus quick fixes worked, we would all be fixed by now. But again, 2025, Americans are mentally and physically the sickest humans in all of human history. And to the listeners, no, it's not normal to be blasting 5 different antidepressants and still being depressed and on high blood pressure meds and medically drugged out of your mind. No, it's not normal. And go ahead and go to pubmed.gov and see how many of those metabolic health issues are really tied back just to genetics. You're just not going to find anything and stuff of that sort. So kind of time to wake up a little bit, especially for people that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and there's symptoms that are just getting worse and worse. It's like, come on, man, time's ticking. So ending it on that point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Paul, thank you, man. It's good to see you as always.
You're welcome.
Shining light at the end of the tunnel. So good to see you, man.
You too.
Paul as well.
Thanks for inviting me on.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. If you've ever had trouble losing weight, or you've lost weight, but still didn't have the ideal body or health you're aiming for, please feel free to reach out anytime and book an assessment. Eugene will work with you to cover your goals in detail, see what's holding you back, and go from there. In the meantime, feel free to check out the countless testimonials on Eugene's website in the link below. In the testimonial section, you'll notice everyone has various backgrounds, are of all different ages, and all have had different challenges in their life, but they all have one thing in common: they were all able to find their health and achieve their ideal body. You're also welcome to add yourself to the Facebook group in the link below. There you'll have access to the live videos that Eugene does weekly on Sundays, and other helpful content. Thank you again for tuning in.